All right, shalom to the elect. I want to start by giving all the praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakodash. And what I said was all the praises, honor, and glory belongs to Yahweh, who was the Heavenly Father, in the name of his Son, Yahweh Shai, who was the Messiah, in the name of the Holy Spirit, which in the Hebrew is Rakakodash, which means Holy Spirit. This is the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who were well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. All right. And Salakia, if the internet messes up, um, it's kind of a bad connection been going on lately. So if it happens, just bear with me. All right. And by the way, Salakia, for any background noises you hear, or if the screen freezes, if it happens, just skip ahead to where I continue to talk. Or if I go on mute, just skip ahead to where I continue to talk. All right. So yeah, man. In this lesson, I'm not gonna say what prompted it, but this lesson is going into it's going into the aspect of not, you know, basically that aspect of dealing with women and things like that. All right. And which we brothers, we don't do too many lessons on that. All right, but maybe there's someone out there that still is trying to understand it, in regards to moving with, really man, understand what the scriptures say about these women, man. Okay, the scriptures pinpoint them out. Um, it's very accurate, very on point. All right, even with today's women, these scriptures were written hundreds to thousands of years ago. All right, and still today they are very accurate, 100% accurate. All right, especially when it comes to women. All right, so I just want to get pull up a certain scripture. Bear with me real quick. So I'm gonna go into the book of First Ezra, chapter 4. Right. So, oh, Salaki. Okay. Let me see. It doesn't. Oh, yeah. First Ezra 4. All right. Here we go. We do it like this. All right. So this is First Ezra chapter 4. Okay. Now I'm gonna just jump down to get to the point. I'm gonna get some other scriptures because I mean it is imperative. Okay. That you as a man, because it's to be honest, man. You as a man, there's men out here in the world, man, that die over women, that off themselves over women. Okay, all because they didn't have the knowledge, wisdom, understanding, especially of the scriptures, but the knowledge and understanding that deals with dealing with women. You know, they let a woman get the best of them. But let me get this first. Actually, it's the book of Proverbs, chapter 2, starting in verse 6. Right. And it says, "For Yahweh giveth wisdom. Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai giveth wisdom. Out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding." See? So the wisdom comes from the Lord. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. Yeah, in the scriptures. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. You see? So the wisdom is laid up in these scriptures, man. Okay? So you gotta get into it. All right? And wisdom is let me look up the definition of the word wisdom real quick. Says wisdom, the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Yeah, judgment, doesn't always mean, a person with a gavel, like in court. But judgment, basically having a good decision making. Okay. So he says the quality of being wise, all these different things, And wisdom does also come by way of experience, when you're going through things. That's what the word experience means, to try out. And regarding women, man, you gotta, you know, You can know about it, but once you if you don't actually deal with them, it's gonna be like a limit because you actually have to go through it. Then you gain wisdom on dealing with women, as you see a lot of these, you know, so-called players and everything have. Okay, they deal with a bunch of women, so they have experience dealing with it. They have, a certain type of wisdom in that area. Okay, it says the soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. All right. Right. Give me 1 second. So it's loading. It's lucky for the bad connection. Just happens from time to time. All right. First Ezra chapter 4, starting at verse 15. All right, because there's a point being made. So first Ezra chapter 4, starting at verse 15, it says, Women, women have borne the king and all the people that bear rule by sea and land. Even of them came they, and they nourished them up that planted the vineyards from whence the wine cometh. These also make garments for men. These bring glory unto men, and without women cannot men be. Right. And the thing is, a lot of women they try to they come in the same, they have that spirit of they should be they feel like they should be worshipped. All right. And that, because man, people come out of them. All right. But that doesn't mean that they should be worshipped. Okay. You gotta understand that a woman is not to be worshipped, man. That's what this society, all right. This society we live in is really geared towards that. All right, believe it or not. You know, women get passes in certain areas. Their judgment is acquitted, if I'm using the right word. You know, a lot of wrong stuff they do is often overlooked. This is First Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Hamashiach, which is Yahushua, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Yahushua is Yahweh. So the order from top to bottom is Yahweh, then Yahushua, then man, then woman. All right, not woman and man. All right, that's the order. That's the rank. So woman is not over the man. Lay your jacket down for a woman, to walk over. All right. The scriptures don't talk about simping. Okay. I mean they talk about it in I'll say a bad light, but what I'm trying to say is that they don't tell you that you should simp. That's what I meant to say, Salaki. But back in First Ezra chapter 4, because the thing is, man, when you understand the scriptures and then when you deal with these things in real life, it really does put you on game. I'm telling you, these scriptures really do put you on game, man. First Ezra's back in First Ezra chapter 4 and verse 18, it says, Yea, and if men have gathered together gold and silver or any other goodly thing, do they not love a woman which is comely in favor and beauty? And letting all those things go, do they not gape and even with open mouth fix their eyes fast on her? And have not all men more desire unto her than unto silver or gold or any goodly thing whatsoever? Yeah, because men love women. All right. That is a big area of interest and liking for men. Okay. I mean, we all love women. All right, as men, we all love women. That's how it's supposed to be. Okay. You know. But verse 20 now says, a man leaveth his own father that brought him up. Bear with me 1 second. All right, Salakia about that. All right, but getting back to the scripture. So first Ezra 4 and starting at verse 18 again. Yea, and if men have gathered together gold and silver or any other goodly thing, do they not love a woman which is comely in favor and beauty? And letting all those things go, do they not gape, and even with open mouth fix their eyes fast on her? And have not all men more desire unto her than unto silver or gold, or any goodly thing whatsoever? A man leaveth his own father that brought him up, in his own country, and cleaveth unto his wife. He sticketh not to spend his life with his wife, and remembereth neither father, nor mother, nor country. By this also ye must know that women have dominion over you. Do ye not labor and toil and give and bring all to the woman? And that's what some men do. Some men actually, give everything they have to women. You know, some they whether they hold check, all of that, okay, etc. and other things. Verse 23. Yea, a man taketh his sword and goeth his way to rob and to steal, to sail upon the sea and upon rivers, and looketh upon a lion, and goeth in the darkness, and when he hath stolen, spoiled, and robbed, he bringeth it to his love. Right? Because you got certain movies, where you got for an example, I'm giving an example, right? You got certain movies to where a man, will go, um, and fight animals and climb over different through different environments and all these things, get something, get a precious prize or whatever. All right, something really sought out for, and do all that to bring it back to some filthy woman. Okay, you know, bring it all to bring it back to some damn woman, man. Okay. And it's out here. Let me look at that word sentiment just to make sure I'm using it correctly. Salakia, let me just yeah, sentiment. It says a view of or attitude toward a situation or event, an opinion. Right. This same sentiment is out here today, even though a man may not go all the way across the world to find something to bring it back to a woman at home. But, basically men, and are doing, just simping for women, as the scripture says. And this is something I feel in my spirit, my core of my soul. This one right here, Proverbs 31 and 3. And it says, give not thy strength unto women, right? Don't give your time, your energy, your resources, all of that to women. Don't give your all to a woman. And if you don't do that, you won't get yourself um heartbroken, as you see a lot of these dudes out here, these guys and stuff, getting all heartbroken over some filthy woman, all right, that is worthless, okay? That's gonna forget about you and your heart. And, you know, and the thing is, men learn this stuff, it's common, especially nowadays, it's common, all right, but you know, you're not supposed to be giving your all to women. And like the brother Charlotte here says, I don't know if I'm saying exactly like him, like how he's like. I'm not sure if I'm saying it exactly how he said it, but um, you know, basically, don't get attached to something you ain't willing to walk away from in 30 seconds. You know, so and that's especially women. And as Apostle Gabar says, women are fickle. Okay, and I always felt that when I heard him say it. See, fickle, it says changing frequently, especially as regards one's loyalties, interests, or affection. And you definitely learn that. Women are definitely fickle creatures. Okay? So why would you give all your all to women? You see? It's truth, man. You know, I mean, it is better to be alone. And sometimes the Lord will remove a woman from you, all right, so you can focus on him. All right, because the scriptures say this. The scriptures do say this in 1 Corinthians 7, which is a good chapter also. We'll go through when it comes down in regard dealing with women. Apostle Paul had wrote this. 1 Corinthians, the 7th chapter. right? Verse 27. It says, "Art thou bound unto a wife?" I'm gonna read. I'm gonna put this in NLT. All right, so you can just understand it easier. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 27. Starting in verse 27, it says, "If you have a wife, do not seek to end the marriage." So if you already have a woman, don't just be like, don't, for example, don't watch this video and be like, all right, you know what? Fuck it. I'm about to cut this bitch off for no damn reason, Don't do that. Right? If you in a relationship with a woman, more power to you, man. Don't try to seek to end it. All right. In general, now if she does something, like commit adultery on you, aka cheat, all right, then, by all means, you can end that. It says it says if you do not have a wife, do not seek to get married. So if the Lord didn't give you a woman, that's basically what he's saying. If you don't have a woman, don't go out here seeking to get one. Okay. And don't think it just means like, when it says wife and marriage, don't think it means, actual, wedding, like a whole wedding ceremony. Don't think of it like that. It's just meaning if you have a woman or if you don't. All right. However, so Apostle Paul saying if you have a woman and you're in a relationship, basically, don't seek to end it. But if you don't go looking for it. However, verse 28, but if you do get married, it is not a sin. Right. So if you do get a woman, you ain't did nothing wrong. And if a young woman gets married, it is not a sin. However, those who get married at this time will have troubles, right? Meaning, when you get a relationship, y'all gonna have issues with each other. It's just common couple stuff. All right, gonna have issues and whatnot with each other. All right, and he says, and I am trying to spare you those problems. Okay. Let me jump down a little bit. This is 1 Corinthians 7 and 32. I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him. Yeah. If you don't have a woman, you basically can spend more of your time. See, women are, one thing you have to understand is, actually, I'll wait on that. All right, I'll wait before I say it. All right, I'm do everything decently in order, right? Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, chapter 38, verse 24, says the wisdom of a learned man, meaning the wisdom of a learned man or a wise man has what? Cometh by opportunity of leisure. He gets it. He gets that wisdom when he has free time, downtime. That's it. He uses that time to gain wisdom. Right? It says, and he that hath little business shall become wise. See? So business not meaning just a job or actual business you have, but basically if you have if you don't have a lot of things that take up your time, okay, and then you use that time, you can use that time for doing the work, all right, reading the scriptures, okay. But see, the thing is, with a woman, that's going to take up a lot of your time. Right? That's gonna use a lot of your time because women, want you to invest time and all of that into them, and that is also how you get attached. By the way, you put in a whole bunch of time. A woman is like an investment. You got to spend time with her. You got to do X, Y, and Z with her. You're gonna spend money. Okay, this is why some brothers will say that. It's, to be honest, man, it's easier if you just get a harlot. Okay, and we all know that. You should know what I mean by a harlot. Okay, what rhymes with constitute. All right, because you can do that. Hosea had one. Samson had one. All right, so the Lord specifically told Hosea to go get a harlot. All right, so it's just easier, you just get your rocks off like that. All right, with a harlot. All right, it's easier, okay, than actually being in a relationship with a woman, But if a brother doesn't want to do that, then that's fine. It's fine too. but it's giving advice. Okay, it's giving a piece of advice. All right, but back in First Corinthians 7:32. So basically, you know, Apostle Paul is saying, a man that's unmarried, okay, you know, so let me say it again. Apostle Paul is basically saying a man that's unmarried can spend his time doing the Lord's work. See, a woman, takes up time, okay, and time is very precious and it is very short. However, look, verse 33. But a married man has to think about his earthly responsibilities and how to please his wife. See, so if you have a woman, you're gonna have to worry about pleasing her, all right, dealing with her, and then you're gonna have to, do the work as well. So it's extra. It's like it's extra for you. You see. So I wanted to add that in there as well. you know, but going back here to First Esdras 4:26 now it says, "Yea, many there be that have run out of their wits for women, and become servants for their sakes." Now let me just see what it says in the AI overview. Let's see. Okay, it didn't give the AI overview, but it says here in the GNB version, it says some men are driven out of their minds on account of a woman, and others become slaves for slaves for the sake of a woman. Others have been put to death, have ruined their lives, or have committed crimes because of a woman. Yeah, you see, you know, this is, and we see this today. We still see this today. Men are just simps. Okay, what is a simp? All right, it says here in internet slang, simp, short for simpleton, but it says refers to someone, often a man, who is perceived as excessively attentive, submissive, or willing to do too much for a romantic interest, especially if their affection is not reciprocated. Yeah, in other words, here it is, you giving your all to a woman, as scripture says, don't do. All right, you giving your all to her. All right, yet it's not coming back to you. See, the thing you got as a man, you got to have a certain type of grit. Okay, let me look at that word, grit. All right, right here, says grit. It says courage and resolve, strength of character. You got to have that. You know, and once again, I'm going through this. For brothers that may not know and everything like that. All right, because brothers already know we're dealing with women, man. All right, but you got to have a certain level of grit. You got to have a certain level of not giving an F. Okay, when it comes to women, you have to have certain boundaries. When does something, you got to speak up. Okay, and I'm not saying it's like I haven't been through it, because I have been through it, and so sometimes still go through these type of things. Okay, but understand that you have to have a certain type of grit and a willingness to walk away. One of the elder brothers, Ayathan, the elder Ayathan, he said a man's superpower is, so roughly paraphrasing his words, but he said a man's superpower is walking away. Okay, because if you look at all these simps and everything like that, they're basically afraid of a woman leaving. But if you she does, if you don't care about if she leaves or not, all right, and you're the one that walk away, that's not, she can't hurt you. Okay, if you don't, how do you hurt someone who doesn't care? How do you hurt someone who yeah, how do you hurt someone who doesn't care? You see, a woman's playing games with you, man. You know you just walk away, to be honest. Okay, you know and that, like you said, that's men's superpower. Women, it's kind of hard for women to you know get over. Yeah, and certain it's so for most women, it's hard for them to get over a man that can walk away from them. Okay, because they don't expect most men to do that. As a man, you should be able to walk away. Okay, not sit up here and get uh handled by no damn woman, man. All right. But first Esdras 4:27. Many also have perished, have erred in sinful women. Now check this out, right? Verse 28. And now do ye not believe me? Is not the king great in his power? Do not all regions fear to touch him? Right. Think of a king, he has all this power. A king and a kingdom has all this power, and all the regions around him, are afraid to mess with him. Right. However, look, verse 29. Yet did I see him and upon me the king's concubine. So not is it just a wife of a king. A concubine is a lower status wife of a king than the normal wife. Okay, you have, as a picture yourself as a king, then you have your wife, right? But then you have your concubine. See, your concubine is lower status than your wife. Okay, but she's still your wife. She's just lower status than your regular wife. Okay, so it says the daughter of the admirable Bardicus sitting at the right hand of the king and taking the crown from the king's head and setting it upon her own head. Right. So the concubine, this woman, took a crown off a king's head and put it on her own head. And that's something. Let me see something. Let me just type something in. What would happen if you, let me say, touched the king's? It says, um, let me see, ancient times. All right, it says, in ancient times, touching a king's crown or other royal objects was considered a grave act, meaning a serious thing, potentially resulting in severe consequences, even death. See, so you could die for touching the king's crown, man. All right, this is the crown, along with the throne and other royal regalia, was imbued with sacred power and divine authority. Touching such objects without proper ritual or permission was seen as a violation of the sacredness of the monarchy and could lead to retribution by the king himself or divine punishment. See, so you touch the crown, that's a serious thing. But here we're reading about an account where a woman did that. All right. And guess what else she did? It says she also struck the king with her left hand. So she hit him. Verse 31. And yet for all this, even though all this stuff was happening to the king, right? The king gaped and gazed upon her with open mouth. So he just had his mouth hanging open. He was just looking at her after she done all this. So you want to please her, so you laugh too. It says, but if she took any displeasure at him, the king was fain to flatter. Now let me just look at that word fain so we understand what's going on. Fain. It says pleased or willing under the circumstances with pleasure gladly. So it says if but so I'm reading it again, but if she took any displeasure at him, so this woman was in any way for any reason upset with the king, he was willing to make her he was willing to flatter her or do something to make her feel better. Why? That she might be reconciled to him again. And we see this a lot nowadays. A woman could be dead wrong and men will just simp, okay? And try to do anything to make her feel better. Okay. This is a king that had let this happen to him. He could have put her to death. You see? He didn't have that grit. He didn't have that willing, he didn't have that strength to say no. All because of it, all because it's a woman. See? And sometimes too, man, the Lord might not give you a certain woman because maybe you might not be able to handle it because the Lord sees down the line. He's all knowing, right? Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah is all knowing, right? So he can see what would happen to you down the line. So, be thankful. Also, too, understand, man, you gotta understand the pitfalls of a woman, bro. You know, this is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7 and verse 26. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands is bands, right? Is lob, okay, which means mine. So it's a snare, net, and bands. It's all trap. So he's saying a woman basically is always trying to trap you up in some certain type of way, whether it be getting you child support, poking a hole in your condom. Um, some women even, try to poison their husbands by making them food. That's a trap. Okay. Another way is witchcraft. A lot of women are into witchcraft, so they, practice it on their husbands. All right, etc. They might want to even provoke you to do something to call the cops on them. So I mean, so they can call the cops on you. Okay, it's just all the scriptures telling you. The scriptures really put you on game, man. You know, so they just they just all they just all about trying to get you trapped up. All right, this is the scriptures, man. All right, this is the scriptures saying this. Okay, and there's many little, like for example, Samson. Delilah kept pressing him and pressing him and pressing him and pressing him about where his strength comes from. And he told her, all right, and that's another thing. It's okay to lie to your woman. All right. It's the book of Micah, chapter 7 and verse 5. Trust ye not in a friend, put ye not confidence in a guide. Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. Yeah. Meaning don't be telling your woman everything, and especially that you in the truth. Don't be trying to tell your woman you in the truth. You get a woman in the world, all right, don't let her know that you in the truth. Don't do that. Don't be trying to convert her from being in the world to in the truth, thinking that's going to be your Hebrew Israelite wife. All right, because most of the time, these women are just for uh, a season or a time period or a time period in your life. Okay, it's as simple as that. All right, and we just read how uh a woman is they just always trying to trap you up. Okay, so knowing that, why would you try to tell her everything? Why would you try to tell a woman everything? You see, and a lot of people would look at this from the outside and saying, "Are you so hateful? You're misogynistic," and lots of people don't even know what that word means. All right, let me look that word up. Misogynistic. It says dislike of, contempt for, or ingrained prejudice against women. And you know what it is? As the scriptures say, Salakia, Amos 5 and 10. It says they hate him that rebuketh in the gate, and they abhor him that speaketh uprightly. So you're preaching the truth. Somebody is gonna hate you for it. All right. So they're gonna hate a person who's speaking uprightly. They're not gonna hate a person who's speaking the wrong thing, such as simping to a woman. I'm reading out of the Bible, and the Bible just gave you know, and we don't hate women. All right. We just hate wicked women. All right. As the scriptures say, 5 verses down from this verse, Amos 5 and 15. It says, "What? Hate the evil. Hate what's wrong. Hate the wickedness, man. Hate wickedness, right? And love the good." As the scriptures say, there's a time to love and a time to hate. So we hate what's wicked, okay? And the truth is, a lot of these women are wicked. About women, they always try to say that. What about the men? Nah, we specifically talking about women. All right, in this lesson, just trying to, you know, help brothers out and go into it and edify from it. Okay, you know, not this is we ain't really talking about too much. We're not talking about men here. Not saying that men aren't. A lot of men aren't wicked because a lot of men are. Okay, but there's a lot of women that's wicked as well, and that's overlooked in this society. You see, but they won't stay around to hear all of that. Okay, but like Micah 7:5 again, trust ye not in a friend, put ye not confidence in a guide. Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. Okay? Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. All right? Don't be telling your woman everything. And that really gets you caught up. And then they want to use it against you later on. You see? But back in Ecclesiastes 7:27 now, it says, behold, this have I found, saith the preacher, counting one by one to find out the account. Verse 28 says, which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. Now, let me get that in the Blue Letter Bible. All right, this is important to know, man. All right, because we live in this world, okay? We live around we around women all the damn time. They just are here in the society amongst us. Let me get this in the NLT. Ecclesiastes 7 and 20. 1,000 men is virtuous, meaning righteous. In other words, righteous. So out of 1,000 men, King Solomon was able to find one that's righteous. It says, but not one woman. So out of 1,000 women, King Solomon couldn't find one righteous. Okay. So this ultimately lets you know that what all these women are off. They're out of order, wicked. When we say out of order, meaning they're not in the way that the Lord. They're not in the proper condition and way of being that the Lord requires of them. So even women that know that they're Israelites, especially in these other camps, they be out of order, man. See, let me look up this in the see if AI overview comes up for that. Ecclesiastes 7:28. It says, well, so we quoted scripture, but it says it's often interpreted as Solomon's reflection on the difficulty of finding genuine moral uprightness, particularly in women, among his vast experiences. There you go, right there. All right. You know, then they try to turn around and say this. It's important to note that this verse should be seen as a condemnation of women in general, rather than a statement about his own personal experiences and the difficulty of finding virtuous individuals in his circle. Man, look, we just read it 2 verses up. It talks about women. Okay, so this is you talking about women. King Solomon dealt with a lot of women. He had 1,000 of them. Okay, you know. So and King Solomon had way more women than any of us have had. Okay, he had 1,000. Okay, 700 wives and 300 concubines, I believe. All right, so he had women, man. All right, so as you see, so this lets you know that these women are off. All right, and for a man who wouldn't even believe, who wouldn't like what I'm saying. All right, because it doesn't matter what the hell a woman goddamn thinks. All right, about what I'm saying, it doesn't even matter. All right, but for a man who would, get upset about that, I mean, hey, you can ignore the wisdom all you want, but nevertheless, you're gonna go out here, right, and you're gonna find you try to deal with some of these women, and then when they wrong you, you know, you're gonna probably be like you either gonna be pissed or you're probably gonna be like, oh, it's just her, and then you're gonna go find another one. There's something gonna be wrong about her too. Then the cycle just gonna continue, and then you just gonna be experiencing this verse, okay? And this goes to show that even men like because the thing is in this society you got to pick out the best out of the worst. It's like picking the best, as brother says, it's like picking uh, the best garbage out the garbage can. All right, this is what it is. These women ain't raised to be wives. They're not married off to righteous men. Men with wisdom, men of understanding. They're not married off like that. The man isn't the father isn't in the house half of the time. With these women, and if he is nowadays, he's not teaching them correctly or bringing them up properly. There's some men out there that try to, but for the most part, I'm talking about the most part, man. All right. But let me see how long this has been going. Okay. I'm trying to drag it on too much longer. All right. But you got to be put on, you have to understand this about, you have to understand this, man. Okay. And write the scriptures down so you can memorize them. Okay. Think of, man, because you got to understand, once again, these women are wicked. So why would you know, give your all to them? Okay. These women are out of order. You gotta understand that and really grasp it in your head. Like for real, understand it and grasp it in your head, man. And I'm not trying to sound like somebody out of a podcast or anything like that. I'm just saying that this is the truth of the matter. This is the truth. A lot of these women on earth is out of order. Okay, they're wicked, as we just said. King Solomon had not found 1,000 out of 1,000. He hadn't found one righteous. Once again, this also goes to show that these men that try to go overseas to find a wife, okay, you know, like for example, a passport bro or something like that, as they call them, you know, and there are feminine women out there, but even them, there's going to be something they do that is going to be off, okay, or out of order, some shape, some way, shape, fashion, or form, something, okay, whether it be them trying to get some type of, I'm not saying, because I mean, men should naturally want a feminine woman, okay, so I mean, they're just looking for the best, okay, they're looking for the best type of wives, all right, but hey, man, like King Solomon said, out of 1,000, he ain't found not one righteous. This is Sirach 25 and verse 24. We'll start at verse 23. It says, a wicked woman abateth the courage, man, beat down the courage, maketh an heavy countenance and a wounded heart. A woman that will not comfort her husband in distress maketh weak hands and feeble knees. Now, I'm going to look it up here. Sirach 25, verse 23, meaning, right? AI overview. All right. So it says here, they wasn't able to get it, but it says a dejected mind, a gloomy face, and a wounded heart are caused by an evil wife. It says to wound or break someone's heart means to cause a person who loves you great sorrow by not living up to his expectations of you. Right? A woman that's wicked, just beating down a man spirit, that's a wicked woman. Okay, making the heavy countenance and a wounded heart. Verse 24 says, of the woman came the beginning of sin. Through her we all die. Yeah. Now you got this thing of, I seen circulating on Instagram a little bit, women saying Adam was in the wrong. But even in First Timothy, it says uh, the woman being in a transgression, roughly paraphrasing or something like that. But this goes to show you why the woman should not be worshipped. All these men out here, women worshiping, and even these niggas calling the black woman God. The black woman ain't nowhere. Look, man, yo. Anyways, this should tell you why women ain't to be worshipped. Okay, remember Eve, what she went off in the garden. Okay, she didn't do what was right. It started off with her. Verse 25, give the water no passage, neither a wicked woman liberty to gather abroad. Verse 26, if she go not as thou wouldest have her, cut her off from my flesh and give her a bill of divorce and let her go. So I mean, if she's really being a demon, a real fucking demon, man, you just cut her off, man. Let her go. See? You know? But man, it's gonna come and look, the day of reckoning is coming, okay? AKA Jacob's trouble. It lasts for that day is great. So none is like it. Okay. These women are gonna get back in order in that day, but it's gonna be too late for most women. If you ain't with a man of the Lord in that day, then you really lost out. See, brothers, you see these so-called high value men and everything in the society, right? Getting all these women and on these podcasts and talk shows, getting a lot of money, views, and things like that. But really, they're really not, they're really not a safe haven for these women. They just are here for while everything is up and running, while society is ongoing. See, but the Lord gave us this truth, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, which is precious. The wisdom of Solomon, hold up. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9 and verse 6. It says, "For though a man be never so perfect among the children of men, yet if thy wisdom be not with him, he shall be nothing regarded." Okay? So it doesn't matter how so-called flawless a man is. If the Lord, if the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the Lord is not with him, he's nothing. See? This is ultimately why Jacob trouble, Isaiah 13 and 12, a man of the Lord is going to be more precious than fine gold. You see? Okay? And women are just going to flock to the men of the Lord. And especially in that day. Why? Because the Lord going to be with them. As Apostle Gabar said, the men of the Lord are going to have stability in that day. They're going to have the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, Isaiah 33 and 6. All right? Wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. Okay? The Lord's going to be protecting them and all of that, feeding them. So why wouldn't a woman run to them? There's going to be multiple. You see, so you just got to understand that. Sometimes, when I'm in society, day to day, I realize that I just look around. It's like, man, when this place go down, these women, man, these dudes and everything they flock into now, they're going to see how really worthless they are, when this thing goes down, man. All right. So, because brothers, don't get me wrong, brothers want women. Okay. Brothers do. All right. But, you know, in due time, in due time, you see, women are going to come crying to the men of the Lord. That word take hold in Isaiah 4 and 1 means to press upon, to be urgent. All right. So, but in regards to this, getting back on talking about to close it, but just a couple more things, you should understand. Sirach 26 and because all of this is good, man. All right, Sirach 26 and 25. It says, "A shameless woman shall be counted as a dog, but she is a shamefaced for the Lord." What's a shameless woman? You know, really a whole bunch of these modern day women, but she's not dressing modestly and all that. What these women don't want to do, that they will be counted as a dog, and they're a female. So it'll only be right to count them as a female dog, which is, well, you should know. All right. That's really how they should be looked at. Women are supposed to be dressed modestly, you know, supposed to cover up her curves and all that should only really be for her husband, because a man ain't, as Yahweh said, that's basically adultery, because it's adulterous thoughts. All right, even though you didn't commit the act, but where you think it would lead to. See, so. But and then there's one more I wanted to get portion of them that fear the Lord. Apocrypha Sirach 26. Oh wait. All right. Sirach 26 and 23. It says, "A wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man." All right. And think about that for a minute. So when you see a wicked woman with a wicked man, all right, the Lord did that. The Lord put them together like that. Okay. And now she gonna run his ass. She gonna just fucking, man, she gonna do him bad, man. Okay. And I mean, this could also explain why, a lot of brothers don't, well, I didn't speak for every brother, but, this can also explain why, brothers don't, get women like that, because a lot of these women are wicked. All right. See, it says, "But a godly woman is given to him that fear the Lord, that feareth the Lord." See, so a righteous woman, A good woman is given to him that fears Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah. Okay. So this could also remember this also too. Sometimes this could also explain as to why the Lord might have took a certain woman from you that you wanted, etc. So just remember that. All right. But this was just a little bit, but there's tons of videos out there. Brothers can go look up that other brothers did. All right. But amen. We're not supposed to be simping. You damn sure ain't supposed to be simping over no damn woman. Okay. The time is gonna come where they're gonna simp over men of the Lord. They literally gonna simp over men of the Lord, man. Okay? That time is coming. So just, hey man, really just focus on yourself, Try to upgrade yourself, to the gym, workout, and focus on your Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai first and foremost, all right? But with that, we'll give all the praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai.